Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the life divine with our beloved Ranga. But today we're going to take a little break from the chapter that we've been on for quite some time, Supermind, Mind, and the Overmind Maya. And what is the question that was asked to you, Ranga? So
the difference between Brahman, Purusha, Ishvara, Maya, Prakriti, Shakti. And a little explanation of that.
Also the word Atman.
Yeah.
Atman.
Also is there.
Atman.
There are two chapters which are very long, and they are the longest, barring the last chapter, which is the longest chapter in the Life Divine. The Supramental Evolution. That is the last chapter, 60 pages, 60 plus. So these two chapters, the cosmic determinates, indeterminable and indeterminates and determinates, 40 pages about. And Brahman, Purusha, Maya, Prakriti, Shakti also is 40 pages. So it's a pretty complex thing. And many have experienced these different experiences of Brahman, Purusha, Ishvara, Maya, Prakriti, Shakti. Even the Upanishads speak of them. But nobody has been able to classify, coordinate and put them in a sequential manner except Sri Aurobindo. So that's exactly what we are going to discuss today. What exactly is Brahman? What exactly is Purusha? What exactly is Ishvara? And corresponding to that, what is the Maya, Prakriti and Shakti? This is what we are going to discuss. First, we can begin with the very simple idea that the divine can be experienced in three ways. The first is the transcendent. When you make a mind silent and go to the regions above the mind, the normal mortal mind of man, your mind becomes silent, there are no thoughts, and you feel yourself to be outside the universe. It's a transcendent experience. So this is one way of realizing the divine. The divine not conditioned by the cosmic conditions and the individual conditions. This is the transcendent. Mm-hmm. You feel that he is the only thing that exists, the others are existing not. Then you can experience the divine also in the cosmos. And this is also not very uncommon. And they speak of it as pantheism, seeing the divine in the universe. In trees, in plants, everywhere you see the divine presence. In fact, they go to the extent of saying, universe is God, cosmos is God. They don't have a concept of anything else, pantheism.
But this is known also in the West.
Yes, pantheism is something in the West only.
Very much so.
Very much. But there they don't normally mention the individual aspect and the transcendent aspect. Mm-hmm. Then the next way of experiencing the divine is the personal. You feel yourself to be, the divine to be inside you. So these are the three basic fundamental experiences of the divine: transcendent, cosmic and individual. Normally, they are exclusive. If you have one experience, you don't have necessarily other experience. It is so complete in itself, each one, that they are exclusive. Okay? Sri Aurobindo's experience, the silent mind, and here the experience of the transcendent to begin with. Okay? Then, in mother's case, it was more the... Mother's case we don't know because she is not very precise in philosophical terms. But she is constantly praying to the divine and having a conversation with him, and her experiences are very transcendental. Afterwards, in the agenda what we have, they are all transcendental. But the personal aspect of the divine, she is addressing the divine all the time. But what experiences she has is not very clear to us. So these are the three main things. Now we come to the terms, Brahman, Purusha, Ishvara. We'll discuss in sequence, first of all the Brahman consciousness, then the Purusha consciousness, and then the Ishvara consciousness. The Brahman consciousness is normally what you call, in the Advaita philosophy, when you experience that you are going beyond your mind, your instrumentation of thought. When there is no thought and your mind becomes silent, you go to the Brahman consciousness. This is the self. When you go to the self, it is immutable, eternal, infinite, featureless. This is the Brahman consciousness. You can also use the word Atman. It is equivalent to this. That's the Atman. But the Atman can be individual as well as cosmic. You must remember that. Okay. So the individual Atman is what is called in our Indian philosophy Jivatman. But the impersonal, universal soul is called the Atman. The Brahman, so these are equivalent words. The Brahman, the Atman, and the Nirvana is a result of your Brahman consciousness. Nirvana, the feeling that you are outside the universe, and it is a result of the Brahman consciousness. So Brahman consciousness, you have to be very, very clear. It is a consciousness which is not describable. It is absolute peace, calm, immutable, eternal, infinite. This is what you see. But can you describe it? Ineffable. You can't, because you are beyond the mind. And you can't describe it because it is featureless. No features at all. And one of the main characteristics of the Brahman consciousness is the world seems to disappear into just images without substance. There is the Brahman consciousness. Clear?
Yes, I want to ask about the mind that has been completely emptied of everything.
Yeah.
I've known two people who have had that.
Yes.
And they said it almost drove them crazy.
Yes. Because there's no movement. You are so unused to that. That's what you feel the first. And that is what we were discussing the other day also, that it can lead to real craziness.
Yes.
Because you're so unused to that experience that it can be that. It can. If you're not really ready to receive it. So this is the Brahman consciousness. But that's not the only, and the Brahman consciousness is impersonal. There is no person there. There is no God, nothing. Most of these people, Jiddu Krishnamurti, our Sadguru, they call him what? Jagat Guru. Okay?
Jaggi Vasudeva.
Yeah. Huh?
Jaggi Vasudeva.
Okay. So he is the one who had this experience, and they say there is no personal God. Buddhism also says there is no personal God. But later on they change their view. There is another Hinayana, Mahayana. But mainly Buddhism, they go to the impersonal aspect of the divine. You feel yourself to be liberated from your body-mind life. You have a freedom. You feel yourself to be free, sense of release, but peace. Ananda and power may not necessarily be there. There can be touches of that also. But normally it is not. So this is the Brahman consciousness. Featureless, infinite, immutable, ineffable. Absolutely featureless. You can't describe it in any way. At that consciousness, normally what you see is the physical world as unreal. You see only images which have no substance. It's not that you don't see the world, you do see the world. Because those who have had, they are seeing you, they are seeing others. It's not that they don't see. But there is no substance in them. In fact, I read about one English girl who had the experience, and she says, I knew mentally that this is my mother. But she wasn't really my mother anymore. Significance is all disappeared. She was just a person. That attribution of value, this is my mother, all those things disappear entirely. You feel yourself to be completely separated from the world. You feel yourself to be outside your body-mind life. This is the Brahman consciousness. Basic thing is impersonality. Completely impersonal.
And was this sufficient for Buddha?
Yes. In fact, it is so sufficient that they find that this is the ultimate truth, Dobali. As I told you, the transcendent and the cosmic and the individual, it is so satisfying that you feel that this is the ultimate. Okay, that's what happens. And that's why each one makes his own philosophy. Okay, so the Brahman consciousness is you can experience it at the higher mind level when you make your mind silent and go up. Mind you, we are saying that the mind is without thoughts, but your consciousness is above, And it is watching your own body-mind life, and sometimes they see thoughts occurring in your mind. Okay? My mind is there, and I am experiencing, thoughts are coming and going. But they are ripples on the surface of the ocean. They don't affect you in any way. They're outside you. You're watching the thoughts happening on the surface. This is the Brahman consciousness. Now, you need not have only that experience. The next experience is the Purusha consciousness. The Purusha consciousness can be impersonal, but it can also have a touch of personality. Okay? So, it's a consciousness which you experience on the spiritual planes of consciousness. Higher mind, element mind, intuitive mind, overmind. The Purusha consciousness, you feel that there is a Purusha. Note interestingly that there is a Purusha at the spiritual level, there is a Purusha at the mental level, there is a Purusha at the vital level, there is a personality of the physical also, there is a physical Purusha also. So there is a Purusha which is the personality, it's a limited personal aspect. You feel that your physical Purusha, your vital Purusha, your mental Purusha. The mental Purusha normally is experiencing the impersonality of the Brahman. Okay? I'll come to the other part later on, but this is, you feel that yes, there is an entity. In the Brahman consciousness, no entity at all. Okay? But in the Purusha consciousness, there is an entity, and you feel that yes, I am this. I am an entity which I have. But what you see in the physical world is that in Brahman consciousness, the physical world is non-existent. Not means images only, illusion. When you go to the Purusha consciousness, the world is not necessarily illusion. The world is real, but it is movement. It is mechanical movement, unconscious mechanical movement. When you are in the Purusha consciousness, you are there in the Purusha consciousness, you are watching the physical world, the river is flowing, the wind is blowing, the sun is shining, no consciousness, just force, Shakti. So that's Purusha, and this is Prakriti. Mechanical energy, unconscious. This is the relation between Purusha and Prakriti.
No sense of negativity at all.
There is negativity in this sense that there is no connection between the two. There is no connection. You see your Purusha consciousness, you see the physical world also, it is not unreal, but it is mechanical energy. That is what you call Prakriti. Then you go to the third level, the Ishvara consciousness. He is personal as well as impersonal. And he has Ananda, and he has also power. And at that time, you see the physical world not as illusion, not as mechanical energy, but your own Shakti, your own power. And you can do what you want with it. These are the three levels. So depending at which level you are, normally the Purusha consciousness fully is experienced only at the supramental level. Even at the overmind level, you are in the Purusha consciousness. You see the physical world, and it's also interesting from this description. When you are in the Purusha consciousness of the overmind, you can be partly here, partly there. You can be here or you can be here. Okay? Or you can have a combination of both, but they seem to be separate. They are not united. That's why Shankara goes even farther. Srimad describes these three. He says Buddhism says the world is unreal. Shankara says the world is not unreal. But if you want the divine, pure divine, you have to go up. You don't find him here. The Gita says you can find him here also. But the Gita does not go to the transformation of the physical world, the Gita does not go. That is Srimad goes up to that. So, the Purusha consciousness, impersonal as well as personal, and he has also Ananda and he has also Shakti, power. Whereas the Purusha consciousness, you can have a little bit maybe of power, because after all, Srimad did change his body, his vital, he did change. So you have some, but not full. Full power is not there. To transform completely the lower is not there in the Purusha consciousness. Then the Brahman consciousness is the Advaita philosophy. The Purusha Prakriti consciousness is the Sankhya philosophy. And finally, at the Purusha consciousness, that is the supramental philosophy of Sri Aurobindo. That there is a consciousness where you can have power over the physical world and you can enjoy while being in the physical world. So these are the three. Now, Anmol, if you have any questions or further clarifications, we'll go. But I thought it's pretty clear what I said.
So Brahman is impersonal. Basically, Purusha is personal and Ishvara is both impersonal and personal.
Yes.
And Ananda comes in.
Ananda can come also in the lower levels, but not full. For instance, this Jagat Guru, okay, he did have Ananda. Because when he came out, his shirt was wet with tears. And you can't have tears without Ananda. When you are happy, you start crying. Even in Wimbledon, they do that. They win a tournament and start crying. Crying can come from sorrow, but it can also come from Ananda. So, this is the three levels of what he talks. Now, when you are in the Brahman consciousness, the physical world is unreal, that is Maya. It is an illusion. Maya used in the sense of illusion. When you go to the Purusha consciousness, the world is not Maya or illusion, but it is mechanical energy, pure Prakriti. Mechanical unconscious energy. You go to the third level, the world is neither unreal nor an illusion. It's your own creation and you have created it and you have the power to do what you want with it. It's your own power which has created the world.
Who in history have had that power?
That is something I can't say. I don't think it's very common.
I don't think so.
But they do speak about Parabrahma, Paramatman, they do speak about all these things. But the codification and the clarification and the sequence and all that, even in the Upanishads, there is mention of all these things. But the clear separation and that even in the Upanishads is difficult to find.
Only Sri Aurobindo has given us the
Well,
delineation.
the Gita speaks of the Purushottama, and the Purushottama is the Ishvara consciousness.
Can you tie any of this to the Vedas?
Not really.
Not really.
No, because the Vedas are not philosophy. They are just experiences without explanations. But they use different gods and goddesses to express the experiences. Saraswati is inspiration. Sarama is intuition. Things like that. They use different words. So it's very difficult to say what they are talking about unless you have the experience. That's why the Vedas are so difficult. Everybody knows in India that the Vedas are something very, very high, but nobody understands them. The whole thing is gone, lost.
He says here in this sentence, in this chapter on these three terms, Brahman, the reality is Atman, Purusha, Ishvara. This is part of a sentence. Brahman, the reality is Atman, Purusha, Ishvara.
Yes.
So Brahman seems to include all these three terms.
They are merged into each other, like ice, water, water, vapor. I can also say ice, water, water, vapor is the same. But you have different experiences at that level. They are not the same, yet they are the same.
And so the all-encompassing term is Brahman.
You could say that. In fact, in that chapter only in the beginning, he says, everything that you see in the physical world is Brahman. The Shvetashvara Upanishad says that old man walking with a staff, that little child, that red-eyed bird, this blue-eyed bird, all are Brahman. Because then you have to come back to the idea of the Virat and the Hiranyagarbha. This physical world, the gross world, is a creation of the subtle world. And the subtle world is the Brahman. So it is from there that the gross world comes out. It's a womb. That's why they call it the Hiranyagarbha. So in that sense, yes, the Brahman consciousness is creating the world. He said that in other places also.
Through the supramental.
Pardon?
Creating it through the supermind.
No. The supermind is creating all the rest below. But the immediate creation, Brahman is creating the world. But Brahman is itself created by the supermind. That's even higher up. But that creation is through conceptual realities, if you want. Conceptual realities, I would put it this way, I use the word usually blueprint. But that blueprint is not pure imagination. It has to become a reality. So first it becomes a cosmos and the cosmos becomes a universe.
Thank you, Ranga. Any other question?
Anmol is still thinking hard.
Yes, I see that.
No, I was just trying to understand then that in the Gita we use these three terms, Brahman, Purusha, Ishvara, but before them we sometimes put the word Param. Like we say Param Brahma or we say Param Purusha, it comes, Purusha Paraha, it comes.
Yeah.
And the third one also, Parameshwara.
Parameshwara, Paramatman, Parabrahman, and Purushottama.
Purushottama is also called Purusha Paraha.
Yeah.
So then what exactly does that mean then? When you qualify it with the word supreme.
It's not very easy to define at this level. I tried to find out the different meanings, but the Parabrahman is, it's like you are, when you go up and you want to see the ultimate divine consciousness, it's like a building. And you are standing on the, what is it called? The forecourt, what is it called? Of the building, the little bit of space before the building starts.
Yes. The vestibule.
Vestibule is the word Srimad uses. So if you are watching from outside the vestibule, you can come back to give a description of what you have seen and what you have experienced. But if you enter the vestibule, you don't come back. You can't come back. The connection with the physical world is gone and you have disappeared into the infinite. So that is the Paramatman and Parabrahman. Srimad says in one letter to Motilal Roy, he says, I was in Parabrahman consciousness for several hours. In one letter he says. So Parabrahman consciousness, you can come back to give a report. You are on the vestibule, you are just watching and coming back. But if you enter the building, you can't come back. Because that becomes the unmanifest. So you enter the unmanifest, finished, gone. You can't come back. Maybe the power will come one day. When you become the supermind, maybe that power will, to enter and come back, that may be there.
For the sake of completeness, what is the etymological derivation of these four words? Brahman, Purusha, Ishvara and Atman? Etymologically?
Oh, I don't know. Ishvara is Isha. It comes from there. But Purusha...
I have some idea of the first three. I don't know about Atman.
Atman, the word usually Atman is used for the Brahman consciousness.
No, but like Brahman they say comes from the dhatu Brahma, which means vast. Like that. So Purusha they say comes from Puri Shete, that which sleeps in the city is called Purusha. Ishvara they say Ish means to command.
Yeah,
so Vara means superlative degree,
yes.
So the highest commander. But similarly Atman there must be a derivation.
We'll have to look at the dictionary and get the... Surely there will be a...
Yes.
So this is...
Very good. I think we can go back now to the life divine.
Also we must remember one thing. Although we are making a distinction between all these, just now as you said, they are really all one in a different grades. This is one thing. Secondly, mentally, we are within our rights to make a difference of all these things. But It may not be as clear-cut as we are thinking, because the Purusha consciousness is there everywhere. The Purusha consciousness is there even in the subtle physical. There is a physical Purusha. You experience the personality of the physical. The physical world is impersonal, vast matter. It's there all over the universe. But there is a personal aspect to it. That personal aspect is the Purusha. To everything, there is a personal aspect and an impersonal aspect. To everything. Take even rain. Okay? It's impersonal, but there is a rain god in our mind consciousness. Take the wind. There is a wind god. There is a personal aspect. So personal and impersonality are always joined together. But this joining you can see only in the supermind. In the overmind you can't. So Purusha is the personal aspect of everything, all right from the top to the bottom.
We are on page 290 in the chapter Supermind, Mind, and the Overmind Maya. The sentence begins, there are two successive movements of consciousness.
Yeah. I'm reading the para. There are two successive movements of consciousness, difficult but well within our capacity, by which we can have access to the superior gradations of our conscious existence. You remember in the previous chapter he has spoken about 4 ways, he has given the 4 things. One is the impersonality, the other is genius, then the other is intuition.
And then spiritual.
And spiritual experience. These are things which show you that you can access these, although they seem to be so different. Okay? The higher and the lower. So, by which we can have access to the superior gradations of our conscious existence. There is first a movement inward, by which instead of living in our surface mind, we break the wall between our external and our now subliminal self. This can be brought about by gradual effort and discipline, or by vehement transition, sometimes a forceful, involuntary rupture. The latter by no means safe for the limited human mind, accustomed to live securely only within its normal limits. But in either way, safe or unsafe, the thing can be done. What we discover within this secret part of ourselves is an inner being, a soul, an inner mind, an inner life, an inner subtle physical entity which is much larger in its potentialities, more plastic, more powerful, more capable of a manifold knowledge and dynamism than our surface mind, life and body. Especially, it is capable of a direct communication with the universal forces, movements, objects of the cosmos, a direct feeling and opening to them, a direct action on them, and even a widening of itself beyond the limits of the personal mind, the personal life, the body, so that it feels itself more and more a universal being, no longer limited by the existing walls of our too narrow mental, vital, physical existence. This widening can extend itself to a complete entry into the consciousness of cosmic mind, into unity with the universal life, even into a oneness with universal matter. That, however, is still an identification either with a diminished conscious truth or with the cosmic ignorance. So, he is describing the intraconscient. So, he has told you that there are 2 ways of experiencing all these inner realities. One is to go horizontally into yourself. The other, which he will discuss in the next paragraph or next paragraph, is to go vertically up. So, I remind you, you are a condensation of the universe. Whatever is there in the universe, vertically and horizontally, you are that. The individual is nothing but that. It's the condensation of the universe. Whatever is there in the universe, it is there in you also. Matter is there in the universe, you have a body corresponding to that. There is the next level of the vital plane of consciousness. The vitality, prana, energy. You have a vital corresponding to that. It's a small formation of the vast prana plane of consciousness. There is a mental plane above that, the third level. You have a mind corresponding to that. Then above that is this higher mind, element mind, intuitive mind, and all those are not yet developed in you, but they are capable of being accessed. So if you think of yourself as a house, which is a very useful image, okay? If you think of yourself as a house, your normal consciousness, you are sitting in the front room, and your doors and windows are the senses. And you are looking out into the physical world. How much of the physical world can you see through your windows and doors? Nothing much. So, the senses are giving you knowledge of the physical world outside your house, but in a very limited way. Okay? But there's a cellar, that's a subconscious. And there's an inconscient, which is even that. The foundation is the inconscient. Okay? So, you are sitting in the front room. Now, if you go into your house, okay, horizontally into your house, at the back, you have a, let's say, a kitchen garden. I like to put it that way. Okay? It's open to the sky. There's no roof over your head. It's open to the sky, which means that you have access to the universe. That's the intraconscient. When you go deep into yourself, before the psychic being even, you have an inner mind, inner vital, inner physical, and you go in and you are in touch with the universe. There is a sky. You can access anything you want in the intraconscient. Everything that is stored in the intraconscient is accessible to you. That is what happens in hypnotism. Your surface consciousness goes to sleep and your consciousness enters into the subliminal. Srivendra calls it the subliminal or the inner mind, inner vital, inner consciousness, or he also calls it the intraconscient. And even deeper into the intraconscient is your psychic being.
So in hypnotism, someone is leading you,
Yes.
guiding you, or forcing you to do something.
I don't know what you mean by that. In the intraconscient, your consciousness has gone into your own inner consciousness. But when your inner consciousness is in touch with the universe. And Srivendra is saying, listen, it's very interesting. It's like the internet. You can have all the information you want on the internet, but it's also subject to error. That's what he's saying in the last. Look, he's saying,
Brilliant.
that, however, is still an identification either with the diminished cosmic truth or with the cosmic ignorance. Just like the internet. All the information is there, it has been posted. Okay? In the difference between the internet and the intraconscient is, in the intraconscient, everything is posted. Everything that's happening in the world is posted. But in our physical intraconscient, somebody has to post it. Then only you have access to it. But in the intraconscient, everything is automatically posted.
And the cosmic ignorance, he speaks of.
Also there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just as in the internet also, you come across many mistakes. Okay? Even spelling mistakes. And also wrong information. Fake news. That also is there. But it has to be posted. It's very similar to that. In fact, in Meditations on Savitri, Mother has told Huta to paint. In Savitri, there is a very clear description of this. Just as you go into a library and you know which book you want, okay? You see the author's name and you know the book name. So, you go to the index cards. There are, I think, 7 or 8 in the ashram library, 7 or 8 boxes. You go to the one that you want. Say you want William Blake. Then you see where W starts up, B. And then you open and then you see William Blake. There will be maybe 10 or 15 cards of William Blake. You see which book you want, and on that book will be written room number 5, second floor, room number 5, cupboard number 3. You go there and get access. This is exactly how it happens also there. But only you don't need guidance, you automatically are connected with it. As Sri Aurobindo says, in the intraconscient, in the physical mind, you have to grope. Okay? It's like a candlelit room. But in the higher levels of consciousness, the room is like daylight. You don't need to, you have to only look and you'll find the knowledge. At an even higher level, you don't even need to look. You yourself are the knowledge. So these are the gradations. So what he is speaking here is the intraconscient. We'll have a look at that, how his description is there. Okay? And the other one, what he's going to talk about, there are two successive movements. One is the intraconscient, horizontal, going deep inside, and the other is climbing up. Now the climbing up also is interesting. Maybe you have a house and you have only a terrace. You have not yet built your first floor or second floor. You can build your first floor, second floor by yoga. Your first floor would be the higher mind. The intuitive mind would be the second floor. The supermind will be your seventh floor. And that can be built by you. You have the capacity because the plot is yours.
Does Sri Aurobindo, I think he does, but give us a clue as to which is the easier or the more effective way?
I don't think he says which is easier because it depends on individual nature. Some find it easier to go vertically up. Some find it more easy to go interior. In fact, they ask, should I concentrate here in the middle of the forehead or should I concentrate in the heart? Sri Aurobindo says that is left to you, which you feel more comfortable with. But if you can do both together, wonderful. But if you can't, you go in each one way. But the vertical ascent is full of dangers. The going inward into your psychic is much safer. But even there, when you are going into your psychic, you have to cross the physical, you have to cross the vital region, and you have to cross the mental region. And then you can access these curtains you have to go through. So when you go into the vital area, okay, that is what is called the valley of the false glimmer. Okay, and that can be very, very dangerous because there are all sorts of things which test you. So one is what he calls Sri Aurobindo calls it the intermediate zone. These are the words he uses. Or the valley of the false glimmer. I think in Savitri it is there, I'm not 100% sure, but this is there.
Yes.
The valley of the false glimmer. So so there also there is a danger. You have to be very, very careful. But once you cross that and you access your psychic being, you are safe.
Is it a zone of temptation? Or what kind of zone is it?
Yes, there can be temptation. I'll give you one or two examples. There was a gentleman, his name was Arunda. He was a lifeguard. We used to go to the swimming in the sea, and he used to be a lifeguard there. Okay, and he had experience of the vital. Okay, and when he told mother very happily, I have experience of the vital, this, that, mother stopped his experiences. And he used to complain to us. Mother has snatched away all my experiences. He doesn't know that mother has saved him. There was another man also who was a casualty of this intermediate zone. It's there in our literature, the letter that is there. His name was Tirupati. Okay? He went into the vital, tremendous amount of energy he is getting. So much so, I don't need to eat, I don't need to sleep. It is there in the letters. And Sri Aurobindo is warning him again and again, don't do that. Eat normally, sleep normally. He won't listen. I don't need it. I am experiencing so much energy, I don't need to eat. Finally, he lost his mind and he had to be taken away back to Vijayawada. And Sri Aurobindo is writing to the family, look after him in this way, look after, guiding the family. How to look after him. So that's the intermediate zone. It's a zone of great danger. That's an intraconscient.
But you say not as dangerous as going up.
Pardon?
You say not as dangerous as going up.
Yeah, it's not as dangerous. Yeah, that is even more dangerous. Because the ego doesn't leave you very easily. And ego, if you are trying to climb those staircases, the staircase will collapse and you will fall down. That can be much more dangerous. Okay, so we'll read each sentence.
Yes.
We have got 15 minutes. So there are two successive movements of consciousness, difficult but well within our capacity, by which we can have access to the superior gradations of our conscious existence. There is first a movement inward, horizontal, by which instead of living in our surface mind, we break the wall between our external and our now subliminal self. This can be brought about by gradual effort and discipline, or by a vehement transition, sometimes a forceful involuntary rupture. Okay? The latter by no means safe for the limited human mind accustomed to live securely only within its normal limits. But in either way, safe or unsafe, the thing can be done. So, he is describing here the entry into the inner worlds.
What is the involuntary rupture?
If you are ready, okay, and in your past lives something has happened, or you have been made in such a way that the nature has allowed a gap to exist, you can enter in without any effort. It can happen. And when that happens, normally, you lose your balance. Our cases of insanity and all that, usually all these type of things can happen.
Nanda, you were talking about like the upward movement and the inner movement, and both have their dangers. But then there's also the sunlit way, which the mother talks about.
There is also
The sunlit way.
the sunlit way is the psychic. The sunlit path is the psychic. Very clearly. So, but for that also you have to cross the. But sometimes people have an automatic. Their nature is built in that way, and that is easy to have the experience. Or it can come by itself from past lives. That also can happen. Okay? So, he is calling it the subliminal self. There is something interesting there we can see. You are separated from the physical world. You feel yourself to be separate from the physical world because of a wall. And that wall is your ego. You are separated from your own inner being. Okay? And that's the wall of the body, vital and mind. Your thoughts are a movement. It's a veil that stops you. Your likes and dislikes, your desires are movement of the vital, which is a veil which you have to cross through. I remind you of the famous message of Satyendra. A veil behind the heart, a lid over the mind, divide you from the divine. Love and devotion rend the veil in the silence of the mind.
In the quietude
of the mind, the lid thins and vanishes.
Yes.
It was said to Satyendra.
Yes. Satyendra was a dentist, a Gujarati dentist who lived opposite the playground, and he was always with a dhoti and no shirt on top, and he used to hug everybody. And many people used to object. So, interesting. You know him? You have seen him? You met him.
Narad also hugged everyone.
You got the hug?
He also embraces everyone. You have started.
Embracing everyone with a shirt on and without a shirt.
Little difference. But Srijita told me, she said, Mother said, never embrace anyone.
Say again.
Sri Jita said, never, never embrace anyone.
Mother said.
How can that be a universal rule?
Exactly.
That's
She
because
herself used to embrace people.
Exactly.
There are even photos.
Yes.
okay. So this is what. Now we go a little more. Okay. So what we discover within this secret part of ourselves is an inner being, a soul, an inner mind, an inner life, an inner subtle physical entity. So, very clearly, a personality, okay, a soul, an inner mind. Srimad also calls this the mental Purusha, the vital Purusha, and the physical Purusha. Okay? He has used different words here, but there is a Purusha representing the physical, the personal aspect. Okay? So, this is which is much larger in its potentialities, more plastic, more powerful, more capable of a manifold knowledge and dynamism than our surface mind, life or body. Especially, it is capable of a direct communication with the universal forces. There you are. Okay? Movements, objects of the cosmos, objects also. A direct feeling and opening to them. Okay? You can have a feeling and opening to them, but now the reverse. A direct action on them. Your own power, you can act outside. That's what Srimad was doing. That's what he was doing in the World War. That's what he did in Turkey. He did in the Sinn Féin movement in Ireland. That's what he was doing.
Tell us a little bit about the Sinn Féin movement. What was he doing?
He was encouraging. Because they were fighting the British, no?
Yes, exactly.
And it was not like India. In India, the Gandhian influence, you want to beat me with your lathi? Beat me, I don't mind. Can you do anything to my soul? Srimad, of course, doesn't agree with this philosophy. But there they didn't. They fought the British with guns. And they had to suffer for that. Because if one person is there, they would destroy the whole family. Very cruel it was. It was a very difficult period for Ireland, but now they are free. Except that little bit on top.
That is
Northern.
The northern and the southern.
But they are free. And the Irish are very open in their emotional being. Very open. Look at all the poets in English. All Irish.
Sure. Very many.
So he supported them. He was helping them.
And Turkey?
Turkey was a khilafat, okay? It was a khalif. It was under the Shariat law. It was a Muslim state. When Kemal Ataturk came, he changed a modern democratic republic. Srimad had a hand in that. But of course, now today they are going back to the Islamic ideas again back.
Sorry, what was he doing in Turkey?
Pardon?
What was he doing in Turkey? What was Sri Aurobindo's objective?
He managed to change it from, made into it was a medieval sort of, okay, it was a khilafat.
Oh, you mean the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire and bringing about...
Yes. It was under the Mohammedan laws. And he got it. And Nehru was, our Gandhi was opposing. He wanted the khilafat movement. So, this is the intraconscious. So, Swami is saying, you can even act on it. Okay, so a direct action on them and even a widening of itself beyond the limits of the personal mind, the personal life, the body, so that it feels itself more and more a universal being, no longer limited by the existing walls of our too narrow mental, vital and physical existence. You lose your sense of personality. You have access to the universal. This widening can extend itself to a complete entry into the consciousness of cosmic mind, into unity with the universal life, even into a oneness with universal matter. That, however, is still an identification either with a diminished cosmic truth or with a cosmic ignorance. In the paragraphs which will come later on, he tells you that this is a sort of cosmic consciousness. But it's slightly different from the vertical cosmic consciousness. It's a different thing. But here, he will tell you in the next 2-3 paras how that the saint who had identified himself at a subtle physical level, the animal being whipped, the whip marks appeared on his own back. Okay? So you are identifying yourself with the subtle physical.
Wasn't that Ramakrishna?
Not Ramakrishna. It was not Ramakrishna, it was somebody else. So that is, then you can also have, you can identify yourself with the cosmic vital plane. I can know your emotions. I can also know your thoughts.
Let me ask you then about the stigmata.
Yeah, you are identifying yourself with the Christ's experience. Physical, yes. In fact, when I had read about it 30-40 years ago, they had said that it is quite common in Germany. It is not at all uncommon. They had mentioned Germany. At that time when they mentioned, there are 30-40 cases where you identify yourself with the Christ. It first happened to Saint Francis.
Yes. And the bleeding was regular.
Yeah. The bleeding, wherever he was nailed, that blood comes out without injury. That's the interesting part. So I was wondering how that is medically possible. And I'll tell you something interesting. It is possible because there is a video on that Discovery Channel, and there is the other channel also, I forget what that.
National Geographic.
Huh?
National
Geographic, there is a video. Abnormal physical conditions. Okay? It's a very interesting video. So, one is, normally women don't have hair on the face, okay? And men have hair. But there can be an unusual condition where even a male doesn't have any hair at all. So, this is possible. Then, there is the other case which is mentioned, spontaneous bleeding anywhere in the body without injury. And it stops after 2 hours. And they have not found a cure for it yet. So medically it is possible for this to happen. So if you identify yourself with the Christ, and why did you have to suffer? Give me that suffering. That was the experience of Saint Francis.
Yes.
And he had that bleeding here, and wherever the nails were put, there bleeding that occurred. Spontaneous bleeding.
But isn't that like a bit of a distorted idea of suffering?
Yes. Neither the Gita nor Srimad subscribes to that. You don't need to do that to yourself.
But they say that those who do that torture the Krishna within.
Yes. The Gita says very clearly, don't torture yourself. You are harming your own being. You don't need to do that. Neither too much nor too little. All the middle path. You'll be very, very... Yeah. In fact, one letter, in the Christian world, there is a feeling that going to the divine is a very difficult path and you will have a lot of difficulties. That is true. But if you say that without difficulties you can't reach the divine is wrong. So, there is a very interesting movie of Bernadette, Saint Bernadette, a French girl who saw Mother Mary and she used to get guidance. She never had to suffer. So, one superior nun used to doubt her experiences. You are not suffering, how can you experience Mother Mary?
That's probably the difference between the pure Jnani and the Bhakta who is also relying on the divine for help.
Yes, that's right. So, but finally at the end of the movie she says that yes, I made a mistake. But this is there, that this difficulty. So when you say that I will invite difficulties so that my journey becomes faster, that's entirely wrong. Somebody wrote to Srimad, okay? That when difficulties come, he says, when difficulties come, you have to watch them as encouragement on the path, okay? There you have to see them as opportunities by which you will progress faster. So someone wrote to Srimad, then I should welcome difficulties? Certainly not. You will have enough share of your own difficulties without inviting them. So such small differences are there. Na? That's why they lie on a bed of nails They whip themselves. And that Dan Brown's
Da
novel,
Vinci Code.
Huh?
Da Vinci.
Da Vinci Code, you see that there's a sect in Christianity where they torture their body. I don't know if it still exists, but there in the novel it is
The
there.
whipping still exists in India, in Italy.
They do that.
Yeah.
Even these Muslims, they do that.
The Muslims do that.
Muharram.
Yeah, Muharram. They do that. They whip themselves until blood comes out. So that is not.
And they make a public celebration out of it.
That's right.
But things like walking across the hot coals,
All nonsense. It need not be done at all.
Ranganath, in Christianity, could it be like all of this is happening because like there's a division between like Christ and Mother Mary, like so
The division between Mother Mary and Christ.
like I mean there's in Da Vinci Code like they talk about like what is it?
The Da Vinci Code it's okay. It's a novel.
Right.
You don't need to take that too seriously.
Holy Grail, they talk about.
namaste all, and thank you for attending.